Okay. Oops. Oh man, where did Okay, I lost Jimmy. Okay. Okay, can you turn that down or something? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're turning the mic on right now. Here we go. Okay. Audrey, where's your Safari? Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Okay, welcome to the Sunday afternoon Sidelines.live wrap-up show. Rob Brown broadcasting to you from a remote location out in the Mississippi Delta in Wilson, Arkansas. And then it is beautiful up here. It's duck season. It's deer season. Man, we have been all over the Mississippi Delta today. We've been in Brinkley, Keyville, Ulam, Gillette, Stuttgart, Hazen, Duval's Bluff, back to Brinkley, back to Parkin. Man, having a great time. Beautiful sunny day up here. It's even better when you got a guy like Jimmy Hodge, who is as reliable as having Chris Kyle, American Sniper, in the deer stand with you, man. Jimmy Hodge, National College football and basketball contributor. Brilliant mind. Going to be with us 3 to 5 p.m. Central, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Jake Crane will join us in the 4 to 5 Central, 5 to 6 Eastern hour. We're going to be joined here in about 8 minutes by Mitch Davis. Mitch, of course, has the MitchDavisShow.com podcast. Did a great pregame podcast with Jake Crane before the national championship game this past Monday between Ohio State and Alabama, and doing a lot of great work. Was down there covering the Ole Miss and Georgia basketball game at the Pavilion in Oxford yesterday. And Jimmy, we're morphing in. We've got the college football national championship again this past Monday. Everybody knows Alabama won again. Nick Saban, number 7. That's more national championships than anybody except for the great Paul W. Bryant, the pride of Fordyce, Arkansas, the Fordyce Red Bugs, Morrow Bottoms. That's a great debate when you argue who is the greatest coach of all time, and they're both from the same school, Jimmy. Alabama fans, look, man, say what you want, but when you got a legacy like that, it's not hard to walk around with your chest poked out like Foghorn Leghorn, you know? I mean, it's very – I don't know how people can't do it, but we got a lot to talk about today. We will be covering college football, basketball. We'll get into some recruiting also with Jake Crane. And listen, bottom line is sports never stops. The narrative, it can't be done. Well, that's garbage. We don't listen to that on the show. But thanks for everyone out there listening, to all of our sponsors. And again, Red River Ford Toyota. They're not open today in Wynne, Arkansas, but they will be open bright and early, 8:30 a.m. on Monday. Justin Wynn, our friend, the general manager, Rusty Howard, the sales manager, and look, John Dobbs Jr. from Memphis is part of the ownership group, the Red River Auto Group. Everybody in Memphis and the Mid-South knows the Dobbs name in cars and trucks. They are gold. And John Dobbs Jr., he is part of this. He's hands-on. I know he hunts over there in Arkansas off Highway 64. If you are going from Memphis to Heber Springs, when you get to Wynn, go about a half mile south of Highway 64. There is Red River Ford Toyota. If you're on I-40 going west toward Little Rock, get off at the Forest City exit. Either way, if you're going to Memphis, get off the Forest City exit, go north 11 miles, and Red River Ford Toyota will be there. They're making a lot of great deals right now on cars and trucks and SUVs. I know Justin's driving a black Toyota Tundra pickup, four-wheel drive, and they've got great F-150s, the King Ranch, the Broncos, the 2021 Ford Bronco. Jimmy is coming back. You can get the process started online. Go to our website for the Red River Ford Toyota.com. You can start filling out so much. And when you get there, you're not going to be pressured. They're going to go, hey, man, great job. Let's get going. It's a seamless process. I love the process. Justin Wynn, Red River Ford Toyota, the general manager. Ask for Justin, ask for Rusty Howard, ask for Nate, Austin in the service department. Everyone there absolutely committed. It will be the best car buying or truck buying process you've ever experienced. These are great people. Glad to have them as a sponsor on Sidelines. Jimmy, still hadn't heard from our man Gordon Ford. He may be catatonic like Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off after they destroyed his father's sports car, and he was speechless and he fell down in the pool. But I don't know who saw that one coming. Georgia was winless in SEC basketball, goes down to Oxford yesterday, gets a win, and a lot of basketball to be played. And Kermit Davis is a heck of a basketball coach. This guy, one of the better coaches around Ole Miss basketball. They're solid, but that's a tough blow. But look, long way to go. But what do you think happened there? Georgia, Tom Crean, not a great coach, but they're bound to get a win, weren't they?
Well, from what I had seen of them, I didn't think so. I mean, I thought Ole Miss. Yeah, I mean, I thought Ole Miss was just going to blow them out. And when a team's been reeling like Georgia has, and you come into Oxford, I mean, this was an Ole Miss team that I think they handled Auburn recently, and had, like every other SEC team, shown really good signs of improvement. And then the next day, the next game, they look like a totally different team. I mean, this has been a case throughout college basketball and in most of the Power Five conferences. So despite the potential of that happening every time out, I just didn't see this at all. I thought Ole Miss would just cruise to a 15 to 20 point win and just get ready to move on to the next one. But this one has to have everybody in Oxford shaking their heads, and Kermit Davis has to be wondering, I mean, what can I do to get through to these guys? And Gordon had just been talking about this very same thing yesterday. When you got key players that just don't seem to be responding to what their coaches are trying to teach them.
Yeah. Basketball, look, football, you got 85 scholarships. Basketball, you can have 13. And a lot of times you get a really good player. The elite ones, they think they're all going to be one and done. You look at the Final Four, the Sweet 16, when you see the teams like Loyola of Chicago. Years ago, Gonzaga was the new kid on the block, but now they're a perennial power in basketball. I think the teams that are able to keep a group together for 3 or 4 years, have some shooting guards, not just, a big guys up front, but a balanced team, they stand the best chance to do really well. Jimmy, you called me and we talked several times yesterday watching games, made some comments about the ACC. Duke, perennial power. North Carolina, perennial power. The ACC down this year, the effect of AAU basketball. And look, these kids, a lot of them in middle school, these AAU coaches, these handlers that they have, they start just, hey, the highest bidder. And I don't think it really emphasizes the team concept. And you don't see the guys coming in. Look at the scores in yesterday's games: ACC, SEC, American Athletic Conference. These are highly touted 4- and 5-star recruits, and they're scoring 15 and 20 points in the first half a lot of times. And the fundamentals are lousy. Free throw shooting sucks. Go from there, Jimmy.
Well, the ACC right now, from top to bottom, is the weakest it's ever been in my lifetime. You just from top to bottom. I mean, and this isn't limited to the ACC. I mean, the only two Power 5 conferences right now, as far.
Hey, okay. Mitch Davis is on the line with us. And Mitch, you were at that Ole Miss Georgia game yesterday. What in the world happened down there? We've had Jimmy on here, have him on here in just a second. But what are your first impressions?
5 and 15 from free throw line. That's it. 5 and 15 from free throw line for Ole Miss. When you only go 5 and 15, you're going to lose games. And you know, I was actually asked Kermit Davis the question in the post game press conference, and you know, he said that they should have won the game, and then that loss was on him. You know, when you literally go 5 and 15 from the free throw line, you're going to lose a lot of games, especially in the SEC.
Is Ole Miss in trouble? Kermit Davis had the virus, was out early in the season, and now he's back. He's a heck of a coach. What is Ole Miss? How can they fix this?
You know, I think I don't think it's as bad as what's going on in Lexington with Kentucky and. And I still believe that that's a real big possibility. When you look at Ole Miss basketball, they always play on the road in Starkville very well. They always, escape Starkville with the win. They have to win Tuesday night against Mississippi State, and then they have to take care of business at home on Saturday against Texas A&M. It all starts and begins with Davonte Schuler.
Look, what about him? His career, and we talked about this yesterday, he's been all over the place. Why? You know, and you see this a lot. Guy's really good as a freshman. Oh, he's going to be one and done. He comes back, and a lot of times the players regress. Is that they maybe have a little remorse that they didn't go pro, or is that why a lot of times they're told, look, you can't get any better, go?
You know, I think with Davonte Schuler, he really fed off of Bree and Tyree last year, and not having that other guard to kind of take over some of the other responsibilities has hurt Davonte Schuler. I mean, they had a couple guys. Jarkel Joyner stepped up yesterday with 20 points. I really don't know what the problem is with Schuler. He's so inconsistent. He's very just helter-skelter. When you look at the box scores, Joyner had 22 points yesterday. Schuler actually had a very quiet 24, but he made a lot of defensive mistakes, and that's been the calling card of Davonte Schuler, is those defensive mistakes. Whether that's the lack of a zone defense that he likes to play. He's a guard that likes to play man-to-man, up-in-your-face defense, and Kermit Davis is well known to play the 1-3-1 zone and doesn't really fit Davonte Schuler's defensive game. Offensively, Schuler's been pretty decent, inconsistent. Yesterday at 24 points, like I said, it wasn't the MVP of the game yesterday for Ole Miss.
Yeah, Jimmy Hyde, sorry about that. We had a Bigfoot was out there messing with the phone lines, and we lost you there. But Mitch was talking a little bit about Ole Miss basketball situation right now, and you were making some points as well about ACC, AAU, the lack of fundamentals, poor free throw shooting, and all. Come on back in with that, and then we'll pick up from there.
Well, I want to go ahead and listen to Mitch just describe this Ole Miss performance yesterday, because I can't imagine there was very much that was good about it.
There really wasn't a whole lot good about it. Especially when, like I said, when you go 5 and 15 from the free throw line, you're going to win a lot. You're going to lose a lot of games, and that's something that Ole Miss saw yesterday. Is the free throw shooting down the stretch. I think they missed. Maybe Gordon can text me and correct me, but I think they missed 5 out of 6 free throws within the last 2 to 3 minutes. That really cost Ole Miss the game. And when you talked to Kermit Davis in the post-game press conference, he said, "Hey, free throw shooting. We got to get in the gym." And maybe, guys can't leave the gym until they hit 80% of free throws, And he said, we've got guys like Davonte Schuler, Darkel Joyner, and a couple other guys that can step outside and hit the perimeter shot and hit a long ball, but they can't step out to the free throw line. And when your guards can hit free throws, you're in danger.
Yeah, the free throw shooting, Jimmy, is so bad. And, I heard an interview. We've all heard these interviews with European players. They talk about over in the European leagues, they'll spend at least one full practice day every week on nothing but the fundamentals. And I'm not saying American players don't go in and practice their free throws and their corner shots, their jump shots, their whatever's, but the fundamentals are lacking. And if you don't have a strong foundation, and things start going bad, you'll fall apart in a hurry, won't you?
Well, sure, but what you often see about European players that make them so effective and more ready to play at this level is that when they're as young as the 7th or 8th grade, they often play against much older players, which means they learn to get humbled at a very early age. They're not pampered, as opposed to many of these 4 and 5 star prospects in the States, that when they move up to the college level, they've been pampered from the time they've been identified as a potential Power 5, or in this day in college basketball, it's really Power 7. You've got to include the AAC and the Big East, along with the traditional Power 5. But if they're recognized as a potential player at that level at a very early age, they tend to take it for granted because everybody's telling them how great they are, and they have a tendency not to recognize certain parts of their game they need to work on. Whereas these European players and Australian players, they've never been really, I guess, handled with kid gloves during their development period through high school and so forth. So they're just much more well-rounded, I guess, in all aspects of the game, as far as handling the ball, shooting techniques. They don't tend to develop bad habits. So it's just a big difference. And right now, it's just come to a head because during these summers, all these years in the AAU circuit, the influence of those coaches has really become almost overwhelming, in that they don't focus on fundamentals as much. It's basically allowing them to play against highly touted players from other parts of the country, and they can play each other in these camps, as opposed to the high school season, where if you play on your high school team, you're limited for the most part to playing schools in your district, your region, and the only time you don't play teams in your immediate areas when you get into state tournament play. So it's there's a lot of different intangibles involved, but it's really, to me, it's come to a head right now where the quality of play at the Power Five level has really suffered.
Well, let's move on to the next one. Last night, Alabama 90, Arkansas 59. Arkansas, pretty good basketball team. Eric Musselman's a good coach, had a top 5 recruiting class. Mitch, I'll start with you. 90-59, Alabama now 6-0 in the SEC in what, year 2 under Nate Oates, who comes down from Buffalo. They're the best team in the SEC. John Petty is a fantastic shooter out of Huntsville. This Alabama basketball team they're playing consistent basketball. They're unselfish. What do you think about them going forward? Because right now they're in the driver's seat and they're just getting better. They're not stumbling.
Yeah, sure. So my thing with Alabama, and I wrote an article about them, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. This is an Alabama team that could actually easily make it to the Final Four. We could see them in the Final Four weekend. When you look at their lineup, especially with John Petty, I mean, talk about this guy is all you can ask for out of a ball player. He's experienced. He's got a lot of talent. And one thing that really sticks out to me about Alabama is that blue-collar mentality that Nate Oates brings to the table. You know, he said, hey, we're going to bring our lunch pail to the basketball court each and every day, and we're going to play a blue-collar, grinded-out basketball. And that's what we see out of Alabama each and every week. I mean, it's a really, really a treat to watch Alabama basketball right now. And, you know, they went head-to-head with Tennessee and beat them in Knoxville. And then yesterday, they obviously dismantled Arkansas. They were up as much as, I think, 41, 42 points in the first half against the Razorbacks, which is a very good Arkansas team. This is an Alabama team that is unranked. It's a very unjust thing that they're unranked, but they had a couple early season losses to Western Kentucky and Stanford. That really hurt them. But going forward, expect for Alabama to be in the mix. Expect for Alabama to make a run at the Final Four.
Mitch, we talked yesterday about Memphis and Arkansas are about to ink a contract to play in basketball. I think that's great. Just like I think Arkansas and Arkansas State should play a game in football every year. Play the dadgum thing in Little Rock. It'd be great for college football as well as high school football in the state of Arkansas. Look, Mitch, Fayetteville, they've won a national championship back-to-back. They played for it 94, 95. Eric Musselman, real quick before I go back to Jimmy, your thoughts about him as a coach and why he's so successful and such a great recruiter. I know he's got an NBA background. It's in his bloodlines, but some coaches that have an NBA background fall on their face in college, especially on the recruiting part. This guy is scary good.
Yeah, so Eric Musselman, I actually covered him when he was at his time in Nevada, covered him in the NCAA tournament. So quick little funny story about him. I walked in, it was my first NCAA tournament to cover in Nashville, and I walked in, didn't know I was not supposed to be in this practice, was closed door practice, and, you know, I decided to try to leave. And he called me over and, you know, asking me questions. Hey, who are you? And, you know, where are you from? And ever since he let me stay in his practice, let me sit on the baseline and watch his team play, ever since I've been a big Eric Musselman fan. And I think the future of Razorback basketball is so bright. When you look at Eric Musselman, I know the loss yesterday, Razorback fans are upset about that, but they're young, they're inexperienced, they're his second year at Arkansas. But when you look at the overall future of Arkansas basketball under Eric Musselman, it's absolutely amazing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can implement in year 3, year 4, especially when he's got this recruiting class, a top 15, I think it's a top 10 actually recruiting class now that's going to come into Fayetteville next year. And you saw last year what he did with Isaiah Joe, who was an excellent guard. I mean, this guy was under first year. Eric Musselman made leaps and bounds, and now he's tearing it up in the pros.
Yeah, Mitch, last year, Jimmy Hodge and Jimmy, you remember Sonny Smith telling us early on about Eric Musselman. He said, this is a guy you better watch out for because he is really good. He got the pedigree. You're not surprised at all by Arkansas. I know they got beat yesterday, but, man, that's a program with a strong upward trajectory, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think one reason that Eric's done well at the college level is that he's been around it most of his life. His dad, Bill Musselman, was the head coach at Minnesota back in the '70s when Eric was just a kid, and I think he's been familiar with the college game all his life. And when he was at Nevada, he had uh, uh, he had 5 transfers that played Loyola 3 years ago during Loyola's run to the Final Four. They played a just unbelievable Sweet 16 game against them that went right down to the end. And Musselman has demonstrated that he can coach every type of player that comes into a college program, where it's a highly touted recruit, or it's a junior college player, or it's a transfer from another school. He's one of those guys that can get players from different situations to play together as a team. But this week was pretty ugly for them. They got annihilated at LSU earlier this week, and then followed up by the buzzsaw they ran into in Tuscaloosa. So he's like every other coach. He's found himself in a situation where he's got to go back to the drawing board and just work with every single one of these players and start at square one. Work on your fundamentals. Just tell these guys, hey, this is a little bit of a different season with the pandemic and all that. Everybody except really, I guess you could say, Gonzaga and Baylor, has had their struggles. There are a lot of teams that are in our same situation. The teams that are going to come out of it and be successful are the teams that are willing to, just put that behind them, what the setbacks they've suffered so far. And from this point on, try to go out on the practice floor every day and try to get better.
Jimmy, that's a great analysis about bottom line is you got to play the next play. If you can't put it behind you, you'll get beat twice. And that's what a lot of teams do. It doesn't matter what sport it is. All right. Yesterday, Bruce Pearl, Auburn, they got their first SEC win, came in with a 1-4 record. They won at Georgia this past week, 14 block shots on a road game. That was big. They play Kentucky. This Kentucky team, not the best Kentucky team. And y'all both, we talked about it yesterday. And Mitch, I'll throw this back to you to begin with. Auburn gets a win. Anytime you beat Kentucky, it doesn't matter. They're still Kentucky, okay? And Kentucky basketball fans, there is a lot of frustration. The national championship they got was in 2012. I don't see them getting it this year. It could be 9 years ago. That's a distant memory for Wildcat fans. And the frustration from Kentucky fans comes from the fact that every year their recruiting class is ranked number 1 or 1A or 1B. So they're going, all right, look, you've got all these players. Why can't you win? Is the passion there for John Calipari? Is he really an X's and O's coach? Or does he just say, look, I got the best players out there. They'll figure it out. And Jimmy, you made a good point yesterday. They might just have a bad crop of one and dones. But Mitch, where do Kentucky fans' emotions go at this point? And what can John Calipari do to pull this team together? There's talent, but it's not his best team.
Yeah, so I'm going to address the Auburn thing real quick, and then I'll talk about Kentucky. Auburn is a program right now with Sharif Cooper and Bruce Pearl. I know that they're doing an NCAA tournament post implication or whatever, postseason ban is what I was looking for. But Auburn, Rob, I've told you this many times, Auburn is in great hands with Bruce Pearl. And a great win for the Auburn Tiger faithful yesterday. I know Kentucky's down, but anytime you win over Kentucky, Florida, or LSU in the SEC, it is a good win, no matter how good or bad they are. It's a
Kentucky's
good win when you beat one of those three programs. Now on to the Kentucky situation. So this is actually an interesting topic because I know a lot of Kentucky fans are torn. A lot of Kentucky fans are thankful that Calipari has produced so many, pretty decent years, national championship, 4 Final Fours. He has not been to the Elite Eight since 2017. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. And, I think it rolled over yesterday when Coach Cal refused to put Dante Allen into the game. He said, in his press conference, he said, I don't want to, heartbreak any kids. A lot of my freshmen will be heartbroken if they don't get playing time. And my answer to that is Kentucky's not paying you $11.5 million to care about the feelings of some freshmen. They're paying you to win basketball games. And I think what it's going to boil down to, and I talked to Blake Lovell, who's associate editor of the Blue Ribbon Yearbook, great college basketball yearbook, and anybody getting. He said Friday on my show, he said, Mitch, the thing about Coach Cal is if he only wins 10, 11 games this year, that he could see a situation where Cal Perry walks away from Kentucky, retires from Kentucky, says, hey, I can't do it anymore. Maybe goes takes the New York Knicks job where he's got a lot of Kentucky players. Lakers job might be an attractive job to him, or the Houston job with DeMarcus Cousins, John Wall, Eric Bledsoe, kind of a remake of the 2010 Kentucky team, that first Kentucky team that John Wall had. Of course, the Lakers have AD and LeBron, and the Knicks have Emmanuel Quigley, Kevin Knox, Julius Randle, and several other Kentucky players. The coach Nerlens Noel's on that team as well. A lot of Kentucky players that Cal Perry has enjoyed coaching. As far as his coaching status, my thing is with Kentucky fans, a lot of them are saying, we just hope that he knows when it's time to go. And so it doesn't turn into a situation like Kentucky had with Rick Pitino where, Rick Pitino went to Louisville and, this and that. But Rick Pitino still left the program in a great position. He left at a good time. Whereas Tubby Smith, he stayed too long. And now Tubby Smith is not exactly the most welcome person back at Kentucky right now. And, which is sad. Tubby's a Hall of Fame coach. And, I've talked to a lot of Kentucky fans, including a lot of my own family, who said that they just wish that Cal Perry would walk away, would just say, hey, you know what? It's my time to quit, and it's my time to walk away.
Yeah. Look, let's do this. And I'm going to come. Great points, Mitch, as always. And Mitch, tell people real quick before we go to a commercial break about the Mitch Davis Show podcast, because you and Gordon Ford, of course, Jimmy and Jake, some of the most brilliant basketball minds in the country, and you're only 24 years old. The sky is the limit. And I'm talking the next solar system, man. Your knowledge of basketball is incredible.
I appreciate that. College basketball is my baby, and of course, college football is secondary to me, but college basketball is everything to me. They can follow me on Twitter at MitchDavis_8, or head on over to the website. We'll have a Memphis article up sometime this afternoon. It's my brother's birthday. Happy birthday to my little brother. I know he's listening. 21st birthday. So I'm going to be celebrating him, and hopefully have a Memphis article up later tonight, early tomorrow morning. But the MitchDavisShow.com is your one-stop shop for the podcast, Full Court Press podcast, and the Mitch Davis Show podcast as well.
Okay. Hang on with us, Jimmy Hodge as well. Hang on with us. And let me say something real quick about another one of the sponsors of Sidelines, the Dorian Agency. Look, most people don't like talking about insurance. That's just how it is, but you got to have it. Homeowners, life insurance, property and casualty insurance. Audrey and I met with Tom Dorian, who I've known for 43 years. You need to have that conversation and just say, hey, what do I need? He'll tell you what you need. He'll take a look at what you've got. And if he doesn't need to try to reinvent the wheel, he's not going to do it because he's a good man. Father of 5, member of Curcio, great friend, CBHS alumnus. Y'all remember him, a guard on the 1977 state championship team, 3-year starter for the Memphis Tigers, 81-2-3. He's an offensive lineman. He's like John Goodman in that movie with Dennis Quaid. Everybody's All-American. He's always got your back. Give Tom Dorian a call, 901-328-5858. Go to his office and visit with him and his team, 6240 Poplar Avenue in East Memphis, just before you hit the Chick-fil-A on Poplar near Massey. The Dorian Agency. And if you're like most Americans, you might go years between making a claim on your insurance. They have a program that allows up to 25% return of premium. That is the Dorian Agency. Tom Dorian is my insurance agent, my wife Audrey's insurance agent. Put it simply, he's just a damn good man. The Dorian Agency, 6240 Poplar, 901-328-5858. Check them out on our website at sidelines.live. Hey, we'll be right back with you. Be with you till 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. East of the Chattahoochee. And all you folks out there listening, we've got basketball, football, recruiting. We're going to give you the best information that we can get. Trust but verify. That's why you listen to sidelines.live. And to Weaver and Harris and all you guys out there, Pat, good luck on the hunt this afternoon. I'll live vicariously with you. Hope y'all fold a few of those greenheads out there, and we'll be in touch with you soon. Be right back. Mm-hmm. Hey, guys, y'all there?
Yep.
Hey, Mitch, you there? Mitch, you there? Oh, hold on. Hold on.
Most men don't like to shop. That's because they haven't been to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Owner Charles Hall constantly updates the inventory. In fact, he's the second largest Filson dealer in the southeastern U.S. They've got all the great southern brands you've heard of, plus some new ones like Turn Road, Old South, and Double Dog dungarees. Plus, I can get my wife to go there because they've got the best selection of boots for men, women, and children you'll find anywhere. That's Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the square in Collierville, open Monday through Saturday.
Jimmy, hold on one second.
Sidelines with Rob.
I'm back with you.
Talk sporty to me.
Okay. All right. Rob Brown back here with you on sidelines.live, and Mitch Davis. And of course, Jimmy Hodge on here with us as well. And talking a lot of college football, college basketball, you name it. And I don't think that it's any accident that Mitch Davis's show has grown in popularity as it has. And hey, when you have that kind of information that he has on there, Jimmy, man, your phone is just great. Your phones, I hate your phone. It just keeps, I'm keep losing these guys when I try to call someone else. Okay. Yeah, dead air again. Yeah. But anyway,
Hey,
Mitch Davis, Jimmy Hodge back on here with us. And, before we went to the break, Mitch was talking about the podcast and MitchDavisShow.com. And, a lot of talk. There's so much interest in college basketball and sports. And, I like what he said about Coach Cal in Kentucky. How happy do these people at Kentucky? Their expectations are every year we're going to win the national championship. Well, when you bring in all these stud recruits, it's your job to mold them into a team. Again, they're paying you over $10 million a year. How much longer do you think Coach Cal will want to be at Kentucky before he just goes to the NBA? He just seems like he's bored. To be below 500 is inexcusable with that talent.
I honestly don't know. I mean, I think Mitch kind of described it. There's a,
and I'm going to tell you something, Jimmy. When you look at the basketball talent that they have in the state of Kentucky, it's not great talent, but they go all over the country to get talent at Kentucky, and they just don't seem to have leaders on the team. Mitch Davis?
I lost you guys.
Okay. All right. We got Mitch Davis and Jimmy Hodge on here again together. Yeah, Jimmy. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I lost you. I'm on a different phone today because I was having some issues with my AT&T Apple phone. Excuse me. But Mitch Davis, Jimmy Hodge on here. But Jimmy, keep making your points. I apologize for that. Carry on.
No, it's just to me, it was just a matter of time that he was finally going to have one of these highly talented recruiting classes that just didn't mesh. I mean, this is, I think, his 11th season at Kentucky, or 12th. His first season was 2009, 2010. And that first class had John Wall, Cousins, Bledsoe, and they made a run to the Elite Eight, lost to West Virginia, I believe. And every year they had struggles, and the one year that they couldn't overcome it was when Nerlens Noel tore his ACL at Florida, and they were pretty much cooked. They ended up going to the NIT and lost an opening round there. But outside of that, even though these mostly one and done classes are the teams that the one and done players made the core of, they, even when they had struggles during the year, it was almost inevitable by the time the SEC tournament rolled around, they were able to, get everything back together again and make a nice run by the time the NCAA tournament started and so forth. As Mitch mentioned, they'd gone to, I think, 4 Final Fours during the Calipari era, but the odds are just one of these years that it was just not going to go like that. And this just happens to be the year. And to make matters worse, it's been a pandemic year when everything's been thrown out of whack anyway. So, plus that, you got probably the most passionate fan base in college basketball, and they're divided between really old timers who always grew comfortable with these teams that they knew were going to be together for at least 3 years. And in a lot of cases, the really old timers, 4 years was just given to, a change in times where, players might be there 1 year, maybe 2. And I think a portion of that fan base has never been comfortable with that. But that's the world we live in right now, where I think Mitch has also mentioned the younger fans, they see these great recruiting classes, but they also see a program that hasn't been to the Final Four since, I think, 2015. And since the Anthony Davis, Kid Gilchrist, and then the John Teague year, that when they won the national championship, they haven't ascended to the mountaintop since then. So it's a real interesting, just contradiction of very passionate portions of this fan base. And I think Mitch would probably do a much better job of describing it and exactly how they're feeling about it right now than I could.
Yeah, Mitch, look, got a question for you. I know you've got to get off at 3:45. Answer that question, and then tell us what you know the latest on University of Memphis basketball, because talk about a passionate fan base. That's one of the best in the country as well.
I tell you what, Memphis basketball right now is a lot like Kentucky. They're young. They're young. I tell people all the time, they're young. And I'm watching them right now. In the first half of the Memphis game, like the rest of the season, they literally look like a brand new team. And now with 5 minutes to play in the game, they're tied at 47 with Tulsa. And it's just, again, it's just been a frustrating year for my personal self, not my professional self, but my personal self with my 2 basketball teams, man. When you're so young, it's so hard to build a program. And one thing that Penny did, though, he kept Lester Quionis from last year, kept Alon from last year, and I fully believe that those guys will be back next year for the Memphis Tigers. And I think year 4, year 5 of Penny Hardaway era will be one that could be a memorable ride for Memphis fans. But I do think Memphis fans, like Kentucky fans, are starting to go impatient, because the Tigers have not been to the NCAA tournament since the years of Josh Pat's. I think it was Josh Pat's second or third year was the last time that Memphis was in the NCAA tournament. And this is a program that expects to be in the NCAA tournament each and every year.
Mitch, Penny Hardaway came in. He won 3 state championships at East High School. It's a lot different on the college level. It's even more difficult when you get to the NBA. Obviously, as you climb the ladder, the competition's better. And you get to the top, everybody does that for a living. They take it really seriously. Now, my question to you is, this is year 3 for Penny. At this point in his career at Memphis as a head coach, give him a grade, A, B, C, D, or F.
That's that is a tough question. Right now I would give him a C, just a normal C, not a C minus, not a C plus. I would give him a C. When you look at the overall body of work, especially last year, they went into Tulsa and lost by 40 points, lost to a pretty bad Tulane team by 20 points last season. I'd give him a C. Recruiting has been good. The excitement was there last year with James Wiseman until the NCAA decided that was not an eligible thing. And his overall career as of right now on January 17th, 2021, I would just give him a straight up C. Now, if he wins today at Tulsa and puts together a nice little run and beats SMU on Tuesday night and then goes on the road to beat East Carolina next week and wins a 3-game winning streak, then I think that could be bumped up to a C plus as we make our way to the American Athletic Championship tournament there in Dallas, Texas.
Hey, Mitch, if you got to go, bounce off. I know you said 3:45. We're trying to keep you structured. Somebody with ADHD and OCD, I'm big on structure, lanes. That's why I like swimming and other sports.
I appreciate.
If you got to go, you got to go. But let me say,
having me on. I'm about to, as soon as the game becomes final, head on with the Zoom press conference with Penny Hardaway, and then spend the rest of the evening celebrating my brother's 21st birthday and really celebrating him and his accomplishments before he goes back to the UK.
Well, let me tell you this. Happy birthday to your brother. What's his name?
Russ.
Russ. Happy birthday, Russ. 21, you'll have your first cold road soda today. It's quite an experience. And I'm going to say to you, again, Mitch Davis, folks, all of you listening out there, check out the MitchDavisShow.com. This is one of the brightest, most talented up-and-coming writers, media figures, does podcasts. Him and Jake Crane both. I'm going to tell you what, Jimmy and I, we study, we do the research. We got these guys on here with us. It's so much fun every show. 2 hours goes by in a flash. Mitch Davis, as always, thank you. You're one of the best. And if you can call back later in the show, Jake Crane's going to be on 4 to 5. We're going to be talking sports and finding excuses to win. But if not, have a great day, and we'll talk with you this week.
Thank you so much. I'll have a good one.
All right, you
Hey,
too.
Mitch, if you can, real quick, try to locate Jordan. We're getting worried about it.
I hear you. I saw him on Press Row, not on Press Row. I saw him in the M Club box yesterday, and he was alive. I mean, Gordon was alive. We'll leave it at that. What happens in Oxford stays in Oxford. But Gordon was alive. I'll say that much. So I don't know if he was going to go golfing today, but that man was alive yesterday.
Gordon, damn near a scratch golfer. But all right, Mitch, hopefully he'll be able to call in on the show today and give us some input. But have a great one, Mitch.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
You bet. Jimmy Hodge, you're talking about the passion of the Kentucky fans, North Carolina fans, Duke fans, and all. All 3 of those programs this year struggling. And there's a lot of schools out there that people didn't expect to be so quickly improved. I'm telling you, Nate Oates in Alabama, John Petty and the core group of the Alabama team, they've been together. They've been through a lot, and they're getting better. And you look around at the SEC, Kentucky, again, the standard, they're not there. Alabama, they're the best team. Yeah, they had those early losses, but no doubt, in my opinion, they are the best team. Jimmy, let's flip real quick. Give me your top 5 nationally. I know you like Gonzaga a lot, but throw the other ones in there.
Okay, I got to go with Gonzaga. Actually, I should say Gonzaga because they're the Zags. I mean, it's kind of like Nevada. Everybody calls them Nevada, but they're Nevada. That's what the locals call them. But anyway, it's the Zags, Baylor, and then I would probably have to go with Oh, Villanova, I guess. I mean, they're a team, that's always a threat. They're getting better. Uh, you have to watch out. Texas has had a great year. I mean, there's such a gap. Again, I've said it several times between Gonzaga and Baylor, and then everybody else. But in those group of teams, like I said, I would include Villanova, Texas. Kansas is getting a lot better. Michigan was undefeated until they got blown out at Minnesota yesterday. Um, um, beyond that, I mean, you just got a huge cluster of teams that can just, they can beat just about anybody besides those two teams I mentioned, and they can also get beat by anybody that in all of these other conferences. So it's just a really, really confusing, just I guess mixture of just unpredictability. I guess is the best way I can describe it. You literally don't know, coaches included, what they're going to see when the ball's tipped. No matter what two teams are being matched up that night. I mean, I've never experienced so much uncertainty in my memory.
Yeah. Look, LSU, good basketball team as well. Will Wade, he's been hit from every possible angle. This investigation that started late September of 2017. Sean Miller, coach at Arizona, he's still there. The Dawkins documentary notwithstanding. Look, but these guys are in there. Jimmy Ott, ESPN 104.5 down in Baton Rouge, made great points on Friday's show when he said, hey, you guys love Bruce Pearl. We love Will Wade. Will he survive? And is he going to get through this? Because I think he's a heck of a coach. Came from Virginia Commonwealth, and LSU, they're steady. They're talented. Trendon Watford and guys, they've got talent, but they're coached and they play really well as a team.
Yeah, I again, this is just one of those weirdest situations. I've said it before. To this very moment, I still have no idea how Will Wade is still the head coach at LSU and how Sean Miller is still the head coach at Arizona. I just, it just boggles the mind, and it just gives you an indication of how just spanning the spectrum that the NCAA handles certain infractions cases. It looks like they're on the verge of coming to a conclusion, and then everything comes to a stop. Seems like they pick it up a year or two later. It's just absolutely crazy. And while I was talking, I'm mentioning some of those teams that might be in the Houston has had a phenomenal.
Well, let me say this, guys. We got, Jimmy is talking about this college basketball season, what all's going on, and Jimmy, we have on the other line, an all points bulletin has been issued, and I'm going to tell you right now, we're trying to get hold of him. Gordon Ford, Gordon. I believe, Gordon, are you with us?
I fell asleep.
Yeah. Gordo, let me tell you what, Gordon Ford is with us. And Jimmy, we interrupt this program to bring you a special bulletin. Dun, 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 dun. We interrupt this program, the latest news on the search for Gordon Ford. Yesterday afternoon, there was a mauling in Oxford at the Tad Pad, now the Pavilion in Oxford, where Georgia defeated the Ole Miss Rebels. We've been searching far and wide. Phones have been ringing. Jimmy Hodge, Mitch Davis, and I, we've all been looking. We're pleased to announce that reports of his demise are untrue. Gordon Ford is alive. Jimmy Hodge in Chicago. Gordon Ford in Memphis. Welcome to the show. I thought you were out there playing some scratch golf at the Davy Crockett course.
No, actually, I wasn't. I'll tell you what it was. I sat here with my dog Homer and fell asleep.
Homer's Odyssey.
Homer's right here sitting beside me, and like I said, I fell asleep. But yesterday was just a really funky day for the Rebels, and Mitch was there, and we talked about it a lot. But Georgia got their best player back, Johnson. And, I mean, he had a lot of shots and, really helped them. But, even as bad as it was, at the end of the game, there was some positiveness that I did see. Defensively, everybody's talked about how great they're playing and all that. Well, at the end, I mean, they can't stop people, and I don't know why. But I will say this, Joyner and Schuler did the one thing that nobody on that team has done all year long. And Mitch might want to jump in on this. Everybody is zoning them because they know they can't shoot. But they did get, in the gaps when they were open against the zone and jump up and shoot shots instead of dribbling it all around, which normal teams do. And they got to hitting some shots. And, you had two guys with 22 points each that, against that zone, they played really well at the end. I mean, Mitch was there. I mean, he could jump in and, tell you what I'm telling you here.
Yeah, Mitch had to go to he's covering the Memphis game and the press conference and all, but he was making good points. Look, I want to ask you this real quick before we go back to Jimmy Hodge from Chicago. Kermit Davis I really am a big fan of his. He's taken 3 or 4 different teams to conference championships or the tournament. Is he okay? I know he had the virus earlier in the season, and I hope to God he is, because he's such a good man, heck of a coach, and all. And did he get kind of, when he was out there for a while, do you think maybe it rattled his cage a little bit, and he's just got to come back into his stride, because he's such a good coach?
Well, another thing too, they are, that being Ole Miss, are a team leader in any team in the NCAA.
That makes sense. Okay.
And they got started later. The coaches were sick. I mean, nobody was practicing during this period of time either. They were sick, with the COVID. They were, not able to practice. But then again, I think he's got a bunch of new players, and sometimes it takes you a while to gel. And I'll be honest with you, there's been some Andy Kennedy teams that started out 1-4, or 1-5, and won 9 or 10 games, But there's something missing on this team. That they don't have leadership, and they have not gelled.
Well, Jimmy Hodge, Gordon Ford is on here with us. Jimmy called me a couple of times last night going, "Have you heard from Gordon?" I said, "No." And I was worried he pulled off at the Betty Davis grocery on Highway 7 and had just gone in there and got a couple of slabs of ribs and some cold road sodas and was in a food coma. But Jimmy Hodge, you're on here with Gordo.
Well, Gordon, when you said I was, and I got to tell you, when you said you fell asleep with your dog Homer, I was thinking maybe you were watching the first 10 minutes of that Auburn-Kentucky game. It was 2-2. I think for about
watching. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the first.
And it's funny.
I was wondering if either team could score 50 if they emptied the gym. I mean, it was awful. And then it got interesting finally at the end. Auburn did everything they could to blow what should have been an easy win with about 3 minutes left. But then Cooper made a really nice alley-oop pass at the end and a nice drive to, get him out of trouble there. But it wasn't a work of art, let's put it that way. Of course, that's what we're seeing, throughout the country. But again, I did see a Gonzaga late last night, and they just look like they have all year. They're just kind of running roughshod out there and just cruising through every opponent.
Well,
but like you said, Jimmy, you look at college basketball overall now. I mean, teams that are traditionally good, it's like a funk. People just aren't playing well. You got, like you said, Gonzaga, and that's about it.
Yeah. Baylor, would be certainly number 2. And then I think there's a really big gap after that.
Hey, let me do this,
No,
guys.
no doubt about it.
Hey, let's do this. We're going to take a top of the hour break here at 4 p.m. Want to say something again about one of our sponsors here on Sidelines.live. Red River Ford Toyota, Wynn, Arkansas. John Dobbs Jr. from Memphis. The Dobbs family is synonymous with the car and truck business in Memphis in the Mid-South from way back, okay? Long before Gordon and Jimmy and I were born, they were in the car and truck business, and John Dobbs Jr. is part of the Red River Auto Group team, and they're back. Red River Ford Toyota, Wynn, Arkansas, about 45 minutes from Memphis. Make the extra effort. Anything worth having is worth working for. Drive 45 minutes over to Wynn, Arkansas. I-40 going west, go north at Forest City about 11 miles. You'll see Red River Ford Toyota. Hey, you're going back and forth to Greers Ferry, Heber Springs, over there to Bald Knob to the Bulldog to get you a burger and a milkshake. 1/2 mile south of Highway 64 in Wynn, where the Walmart is, where Hot Stone Restaurant is, where Ellen, the Viking, Audrey's cousin, and Scott are there. Great Firestone pizza, by the way, at Hot Stone in Wynn, Arkansas. God, it's good. We're going there tonight. Look, Red River Ford Toyota. Justin Wynn, our friend, the general manager, they're there Monday through Saturday, 8:30 a.m. till 6 or 7 p.m. Rusty Howard, the sales manager. Austin in sales. Nate, the sales force. Everybody there committed to making the buying experience for a new or used car or truck or SUV absolutely a positive experience. And look, get the process started. Get online. Go to the redriverford.com website. You can find them on our sidelight at sidelines.live. Get the process started. When you get there, you're not going to be hotboxed and pressured by some guy, named Cletus wearing a clip-on tie with a comb over and eating breath mints every 20 seconds. It is a pleasurable experience. Red River Ford Toyota. Drive over there. John Dobbs Jr. loves working. He's hands-on, part of the ownership team. You will be glad you did it. If you're looking for a used vehicle as well, they got over 700 in inventory. Tell them what you want, and they will go find it. Hey, let's take a quick commercial break. We got another hour to go. The Sunday afternoon wrap-up show, www.sidelines.live. All of you out there listening, thank you so much. Support our sponsors. Hey, Weave, I hope y'all are out there killing some ducks right now with Pat and the Red Man and Dave and everybody. They're up there in Frenchman's Bayou. It's duck and deer season, but we'll be right back. Another hour to go. We're going to find excuses to win.
Baby. Oh, let me show you this in case. This is Melba.
Okay.
It was me. I'll put this in another people go there tonight. This is out.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Pat bought these. Pat loaded my cooler up with all those. We drank them yesterday and today, and he's unbelievable. He's so cool. Yep. Okay, Rob Brown back here with you. Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, national football and basketball contributor. Gordon Ford in Memphis. Not only is he Mr. Ole Miss Rebel, which Gordon, you fight that title with Lonnie Smith, the pride of Macomb, Mississippi. Now, man, we got Jake Crane on the radio with us now, host of the J-Boy podcast out of Tupelo, Mississippi. And Jake, this morning, Wilson and his buddy Teddy that came up from Auburn to go duck hunting with us, we're riding around. We left hunting over there in Keyville, south of Brinkley, going toward Clarendon. And Pat Dye Jr. is up here with us doing some duck hunting. And he was talking about the first 3 guys he signed as an agent when he was young were Kurt Crane. Your dad was one of them. And just, man, I'm going to tell you what great memories. And Jake, you know what? You work as hard as a dozen Mennonite farmers to produce every podcast and to everything that you do. But I tell you what, I told him that you're on the show with us, and he said, man, I'm going to tell you what a great group of people. And Jake Crane, welcome to the podcast. And I know you've been up in Charlotte. Hope things are going well. And we're glad to have you on here talking college football, basketball, and recruiting.
Oh, well, Rob, man, I really appreciate that introduction. I love coming on here with you guys. What's up, everybody out there? And, signing my dad, he's his age, and I bet they have some good stories and some good times. I'd love to get, obviously, Pat Dye Jr. on the podcast. That'd be great, Rob. And, but, man, just, kind of looking around, I heard y'all talking some basketball earlier. I love it. I'd just like to say, obviously, Bruce Pearl beats Kentucky for the 4th straight season, something I never thought we would ever see on the face of the earth. Every time they do beat them, I walk outside and look around to make sure everybody's okay and everything's all right. So, it's amazing just watching. And again, that's without Justin Powell. But, I want to say something. I've had Sean Farnham on and Jimmy Dyson, a bunch of guys, and I think everybody's in agreement. I think you guys will agree with me. Looking across the landscape of the SEC from a basketball standpoint, I don't think there's really an elite team. You guys are right on, in my opinion, in Gonzaga. I watched them play against Auburn. It's amazing. You look at them, and then they got some guys that look like they're NBA players, and then a bunch of guys that, you'd underestimate in the Y until they skunked you 3 games in a row, and you're wondering what's happened because they're 20 years older than you and don't look athletic. So Gonzaga's going to continue to do that, but I think there's a lot of really good teams in the SEC. Alabama's really hot right now. When Petty's hitting the 3, they're really hard to beat with or without Bruner. Just like in basketball, though, it's such a crazy sport. Obviously, I don't think anybody's going undefeated in the league, but Nate Oates is doing a really good job. And I've said from the jump on the show, just from a basketball standpoint, if you look at the state of Alabama, the basketball is as good as it's ever been. Probably these next couple of years, 4 to 5 years, are going to be about as good as we've ever had since the Wimp and Sunny days. So it makes both programs better, and I'm just so excited the SEC decided to take men's basketball seriously. Look at the coaches. Look at the draft. It's going to be fun for a while, guys.
You bet. Great points. Gordon Ford, come on in here on that.
I agree with him. I mean, it's been good, but like I mentioned earlier, I mean, it doesn't seem like the teams are as good because the thing is, you haven't had any preseason games. You don't know who's gelled. You can't tell about Arkansas. One day they're beating the crap out of somebody, and the next day they're getting pounded. So you just gotta, it's just weird. And of course, Vanderbilt's back to where Vanderbilt was a traditionally good program. In the last several years, with the coaches they've had lately, they've just become terrible.
Yeah, Gordon.
That's one thing that jumps out at me right there.
Gordon, I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize, but I do want to ask you: how did Vanderbilt basketball go from never having a losing season at Memorial Gymnasium? I mean, that is the socially elite. The thing to do in Nashville is to attend Vanderbilt basketball. And Bryce Drew, all everybody could say was, "Oh, he's the guy who hit that shot when Valpo beat Ole Miss in the NCAA tournament." And
that's true.
He was a disaster as a coach. And now Jerry Stackhouse is a disaster, 2.0? I mean, why can't they right the ship with Vanderbilt basketball? They're the power ratings for SEC basketball. Vanderbilt is last because there's not a 15th place on the list.
Well, I would say that the games I've watched, they and Texas A&M look the worst. I'm just telling you, you know why they can't get it back? Because they're making bad hires. And as you mentioned on other shows, what school would have given Derek Mason 7 years? Come on. I mean, and now they've got Stackhouse in there with no college coaching experience. And the former athletic director was the director of the G League And Stackhouse was the coach in the G League, and then he went back to assistant for the Memphis Grizzlies. And then after that, he decided to hire him, and of course stuff happened up there where they ended up firing him. So they're stuck with Stackhouse. They got to hire a coach that kind of knows, the Vanderbilt way. I mean, know that they won, that they've had tradition. They probably have as much tradition as any team in the SEC. I mean, they have consistently won there. I mean, forever. And now they're just, I think you're right, Rob. They just don't care up there anymore. They want to be liberal and stylish, and they're not really into winning.
Yeah, I agree. Jake?
Oh, hey, sorry.
Yeah.
Gordy, I got a question for you, man. One of the teams that I thought was going to be sneaky this year was Ole Miss, because I'm a big believer in Kermit Davis, what he did at Middle Tennessee, the way he was able to coach Diddy Potts and those guys, and the runs they were able to make in the tournament. With the guys that are coming back with Schuler, I just expected more. And again, obviously, it's been a weird year for everybody. And like you pointed out, there were no scrimmages or preseason games. There were obviously non-conference games, so teams got to play some games before the SEC slate. It's not like football where they just didn't play any games and just went into conference play. Auburn played Gonzaga, UCF, and a couple others. So I just wonder, just from your point of view, what's kind of the feeling on Kermit Davis right now? He's been recruiting really well. I've been covering it. I mean, you got some really good players coming in. You're in the top. Yeah, and he's you guys are a real player for the 5-star in the 2022 class, Huntley Hatfield. So what's kind of the feeling on that would be my question.
Well, first of all, I'm going to quote Gene Bartow. I don't know if you remember him or not.
I heard you that day.
Yeah. But Gene Bartow made a comment one time: when you shoot good, you look good. Well, Ole Miss is shooting good, and they're not looking good. So, he recruited a bunch of guys, and Schuler, for whatever reason, has not taken a leadership role for them. I mean, he has had games where he'll get 20, and a game he'll go 0 for 8 or something. And you can't have that in your senior point guard. He brought in White from Arizona State. He played in the Pac-12, was a good player there. When you're 6'8", you can power over people. There are people in the SEC can jump over you and block your shot, and he has not been as effective as he should. One other thing, people are playing him a zone, and nobody, knows how to, he doesn't have the shooters that hit the shots. And yesterday they finally stepped up and hit some shots, but it was too late. And, they should have beat Georgia. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot of games they should have won. They're 6-6, but people forget Georgia was 7-5 playing them yesterday. So they really have struggled in the SEC, but they didn't have their best player. So now he's back and, they won. But to answer your question, they can't shoot the ball. And Florida went on a 14-0 run. Ole Miss was up 2, and they got beat 12. I mean, that's the type stuff, the lulls in their offense and the lack of shooting.
Look, Gordon, and I'm going to throw this one up here to Jimmy. You look at the SEC basketball right now. We talk a lot about Mike Slive gave that directive several years ago. We have got to improve our basketball programs across the board. Everybody's gone out and hired what most people perceive as to be a big-time coach. The financial commitment's there, and it doesn't take that much to build a basketball program. You've got to have, though, and you benefit when you have a lot of guys that have been there for 3 or 4 years. Last year, in Jimmy, Isaac Okoro was a one-and-done at Auburn. Chuma Okeke the year before that went in the first round, despite, ripping his knee up in the North Carolina game when Auburn made that run to the Final Four in the 2019 going up to Minneapolis. I want, Gordon, maybe you can make some sense out of this. Everybody's got a coach. Everybody's going out and they're recruiting pretty well. Vanderbilt's not. What I think is Jerry Stackhouse, heck of a college basketball player. He'd been in the NBA for a long time. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't like recruiting because after the end of the workday, getting on the phone and texting and Snapchatting with 16 and 17-year-old teenagers might not be that much fun for him. And you trust me, it comes through when you're recruiting. Jimmy, am I on to something? And then kind of take a paintbrush and just brush over the rest of the conference.
Well, as far as go ahead. No, go, Gordon. Go ahead.
Stackhouse supposedly had tremendous AAU connections. You know, I think he ran some AAU teams. You know, he was big buddies. Donnie Tyndall was one of his assistants when he was in the G League. I mean, you know, he had contacts where, you know, he could get some recruits. I just don't think, you know, I just think their program's just so down. It's just going to take a special guy to come back in and bring them back.
Yeah. Jimmy, what do you think?
Well, things really started to just totally spin out of control after David Williams died suddenly of that heart attack about 3 years ago. I mean, he was just, just a gigantic force there, and kind of just ran everything. And I think Bryce Drew is a good coach, but he made a fatal mistake 2 years in a row. He really put all his eggs in this in the basket regarding a 5-star recruit each year. And it was a guard. Lost him both years. Lost him in preseason practice. And yes, and there was just no plan B at all, and it just ended up being a disaster. I think they should have kept him another year, but certainly you can't argue when you go winless in the SEC, you know, keeping a guy. But he's at Grand Canyon now, replacing Dan Marley, and I think he's going to do a really good job there and resurrect his career. But Gordon's right. Vandy is just a completely different breed of cat. In his first 7 or 8 years there, Kevin Stallings just did a great job. And then as time went on, to be truthful, it just got stale. Kind of the same thing that happened with Rick Barnes at Texas. I mean, he's a really good coach, but the last 4 or 5 years there, it got stale. And when he went to Tennessee, to be truthful with you, I thought he was just going to be running out the string. Instead, he's just done a fabulous job there. He too just needed a change of scenery, and in fact, Cal was one of the guys that recommended him strongly to the Tennessee brass to support him for that job. And Cal told him last year, "Yeah, now I'm about 2-7 against you. I don't know why I did that." You know. But again, you know, lots of times, you know, a program and a coach at the same time just need a change of scenery on both sides of the equation. And with Tennessee, it just worked out perfectly with Barnes. And now Mike White, who I thought was going to be one of the rising stars in college basketball, Florida, had that Elite Eight run 2 or 3 years ago. Now they've fallen on hard times, and you're hearing talk of him being on the hot seat. So it's just college basketball right now is just a crazy world, and a lot of it is just trying to ride out these hard times and simply just have the mindset that, hey, these are 18, 19-year-old 20-year-old youngsters who are forming the majority of your roster nowadays, and it's just going to be a work in progress. And you just have to go out there every day, learn from how successful or unsuccessful you were in regard to the one-loss column the night before, and go back to work no matter what happened, and just do everything you can to try to make your players better every night out, because it seems this is the overwhelming theme and what I call now the Power 7 conferences of college basketball. When you talk about the Power 5, and in basketball, you've got to add the AAC and the Big East into the equation.
Yeah, Jake Crane, how quickly can you recruit your way out of the gutter in basketball compared to football?
A lot faster. It's a lot less numbers. Yeah, the roster difference is amazing. I think it's like 0.1% or a little bit over of what a football roster is. That doesn't mean it's easy, because obviously there's, in my opinion, less guys out there that are 6'8", that can jump up, dunk a basketball, hit a three, and play in transition, that can play tackle or tight end in football. But nowadays, it's pretty quick. A lot of it has to do with where you're at. The logo on your shirt when you walk in. And, it's funny, I say that, and you look around this year, and Kentucky's obviously down. I still maintain to this day that Auburn broke Kansas and North Carolina in that NCAA tournament. I didn't think they thought an SEC team could do it like that in their arena. North Carolina hadn't been the same since, and Kansas is obviously staring down the barrel with NCAA. But, you're a good center or an elite big man or power forward, and a couple guards that are veteran that can handle the ball and don't fold in certain situations. And Gordy said it best. Look, it's basketball. It's pretty simple. You got to make shots. And you look at the way teams play nowadays, look at the way Bruce Pearl's teams play and Nate Oates' teams play, and all these up-tempo teams that are running, gunning, and you're shooting three-pointers at an unbelievable rate. Steph Curry's the one who changed the game, and now that's, kind of a staple offense. So I don't think it takes that long from a number standpoint, but you got to get, just like anything or any team, you got to get the right guys, get the right culture in there, but I would say it's a little bit quicker.
Hey, Jake, another question for you before we go back to Gordo and Jimmy. Tennessee football. A lot happening up there right now. I've been a big proponent of Jeremy Pruitt, but something changed, in my opinion. And I'm not there.
You got caught.
When he fired Jimmy Brumbaugh on the field during the Kentucky game. And now I've been hearing reports there's something internal going on at Tennessee that they're trying to get rid of Jeremy, who I think is the best assistant, in terms of X's and O's of Saban. But Pat Jr. today told us in 13 of the last 14 seasons, Nick Saban has lost an assistant coach who became a head coach. We know what his record is in the SEC against his former assistants. It's 23-0. Okay? But I want to ask you this. And I want everybody, I'm going to start with Jake, Gordo, and then Jimmy. Something's going on at Tennessee. Will Friend was the only coach after 3 years who held the same position, offensive line, that he had when he started with Jeremy. Now, they were teammates at Alabama. Will Friend out of Neshoba County High School in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And my God, I have run the Heart of Dixie Triathlon quite a few times over the years. You end up at the Neshoba County Fair. It's not one lap, it's 2 laps around that track. But man, heck of a coach, great recruiter. So many of these guys are gone. Tracy Rocker left last year, went to South Carolina. Now he's back at Auburn. Will Friend left Tennessee after this 3-year run, went to South Carolina for 2 weeks. Now he's at Auburn. Mike Bobo from South Carolina is now offensive coordinator at Auburn. I'm going to start with you, Jake. I got a lot of friends, including my wife. Touchdown, Tennessee. What did he do? Score. Give him 6. Man, that tradition, sunset on the banks of the Tennessee River, Neyland Stadium, the 9th winningest program in the history of college football from 1936 to 2004, Jake. Only 7 losing seasons. Since 2005, 9 losing seasons. When they got rid of Phil Fulmer, I said it at the Duck Club over in Cache, Arkansas, out on 226. This Lane Kiffin hires the first of many to replace the big guy. Is he now the problem looking over Jeremy? Make sense out of this mess, because it's more confusing to me than me trying to teach Mandarin Chinese.
Yeah, well, when it comes to Phil Fulmer in Tennessee, I think there's a saying that's very fitting. You either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And I kind of think that's what happened over there with him. You look at, the deal with Tennessee right now, and we've talked about, their quarterback issues, and I think that's been Jeremy's biggest problem. You look at Guantano, some of the guys they've rolled out there. I do like the young kid that they brought in there at the end. His name escapes me for some reason right now. But just looking, the NCAA's got him. They got you. They caught you. Not only did they catch you, I think they caught somebody else too. So, at this point for Tennessee, I think they're trying to find a way to part ways with Jeremy Pruitt. You got obviously a big extension that he signed, but there's clauses and stuff for cause and contracts. I don't want to get too deep into that, obviously, but I think they're looking for a way out. You look at the hire of Kevin Steele as the DC. I wonder if he's going to be the first guy to be interim head coach at two places within 4 months. I just think it's a mess right now. You look at recruiting, a lot of those guys that they had, because remember during the summer now, Tennessee was hot in recruiting, but it's just about as bad as it can get, and it's going to get worse. And Tennessee's just in this cycle of, making bad decision after bad decision. I thought it was going to work out with Jeremy Pruitt when they hired him. You're right. He's a great X's and O's guy. But, you mix not being able to have a quarterback, like I said, with NCAA trouble that's legitimate, that's going to come with legitimate consequences. And obviously that does nothing but hurt you if you do fire him and have to try and go hire another coach, because who's going to want to come in and do that other than a young guy who can't believe he's getting offered the Tennessee job?
Jake, real quick one. You've coached 9 years. You spent 4 years on the staff with Joey Jones at South Alabama. And if you could you get Joey on the show? I would love to have him on Sidelines.
Yeah. I'm sure Coach Jones would do that. I'll reach out to him.
Absolutely. I love it. And by the way, thanks so much last week for Chris Doring. Man, Mr. Two Bits has got to love that guy. Chris Doring.
This is a savage. He's great.
Anytime that he is so cool, lifelong Gator, mom and dad are Gators. And again, Jake, you made a good point. The longer we live, the more we realize, hey, we love our schools. Gordon loves Ole Miss, Jimmy, Alabama, you and me, we're Auburn guys. But you love the others. You love the other schools too, because you share their passion for it. But real quick, Gordon, looking at it from your perspective, you and I live in Memphis. We've been doing radio together since 1988. Wow, that is
88.
Yeah, according to my math, that's Gazenda's 5 Gazenda. How are you with
33 years now, Rob? We've been saying 32.
At 33 now, it's a new year. Look, I love doing radio with you. You're smart, you're funny, but more than anything, you are really spot on because you don't have a filter. You tell me, what in the heck is wrong with Tennessee? They got 13 players on the roster from Shelby County, which is Memphis. And, 11 from Memphis, 2 from, one each from Germantown and Collierville. What the heck's going on with Tennessee as you see it? Jake, brilliant, spot on.
I can tell you right now, Rob, there's no secret. Jeremy Pruitt's a micromanager. Everywhere he's been, he's ticked somebody off, and he's ticked them off up there now. He went in and got Mark Richt fired. That was his whole deal when he left Florida State. They didn't like him there either.
Yeah.
And he goes in and he tries to get Mark Richt fired. Okay. Then he's at Alabama where, he knows not to screw with Saban because Saban would do him in. So he ends up getting the job. And, he tried to get the Ole Miss job, and then some things came up about him where he didn't do it. But, the guy's a micromanager. I want to say that, and I know who told me this, but when he first went in there, he went to Fulmer, and I think they fired the team doctors. He didn't like those guys. He thought, they were keeping players from playing, and several things like that. So finally, he's ticked everybody off up there, and then firing Jimmy Brombaugh, that was not good. And, I don't know if you know this, Rob. They were paying Brombaugh about $650,000 or $800,000 a year.
Yeah, $800,000
That's a lot of money just to can someone. Yeah. And another thing, people are talking about Kevin Steele being the defensive coordinator. He is not. He's consultant, from what my understanding is. That's
you're right. No, you're right. You're right.
He is consultant. Right. And the thing is, the only reason he's got him in there because he can't fire those dudes. And I think as a consultant, I don't know if you can be on the field. I don't think Butch Jones was on the field.
You can't be on the field.
You cannot be on the field.
That's correct. The only exception is
they gave him the title there, but it's Jeremy's defense. You're right. It's just like it was Nick's defense when Jeremy was there at Alabama. It's going to be Jeremy's defense. You're exactly right. Steele will be a consultant, kind of a guy that obviously just consults. You hit it right on the head. It's a great word.
He's probably consulted more than usual, but, that's what his job is.
Look,
but in answer to your question, he's just a jerk, and he's ticked everybody off, and he's ticked people off in the SECs with this guy in the know told me. And so, when you do that, and the league's out to get you, just like Lindsey Buckingham said, I think we're in trouble there,
Yeah. Well, Gordon.
And another weakness he has that's very overlooked many times, and people will laugh at it, but it's really critical. He's not good with the media at all.
Oh, no.
No. Pruitt knows the guy at the media. Pruitt has asked many times, why don't we have to do this crap,
Yeah.
And when you get that way, the media will bury you, brother.
Yeah. Jimmy, go ahead.
Jake hit it. In this day and age in college football, you've got to be solid, if not really good at quarterback. And since he's been there, they just haven't had a good situation at quarterback. And also I think it's been overlooked, and it's not a secret over the years. You talk about Fulmer, when he kind of blindsided, even though Curry did a horrible job botching the head coaching search. But Fulmer kind of did the same thing to, Curry, and ended up getting rid of him and the president. And so he jumps in and becomes the AD, brings in Pruitt. That's his guy. And, he's kind of stuck with him. And you combine the fact that 2 days before the opener against South Carolina, they signed him to a 5-year extension. There's no reason to do that. And that just made the situation worse. And then, again, Fulmer has been well known for being a micromanager himself. So you have two guys that are kind of, very similar in how they do a lot of things. And then when you combine the fact that they're not winning, it's just it's a really ugly situation now with all this dirty laundry that's coming out in public. Just imagine what it's doing to your recruiting. It's just ugly.
Jimmy, you grew up in Clinton. Jimmy, you grew up in Clinton, Tennessee, right next to Knoxville. Your high school teammate, Larry Severs. After Terry Beasley, you had Larry Severs in the SEC, two of the greatest receivers ever. You know the passion of the Tennessee fan base. My wife, Audrey, her dad died 20 years ago. That's her connection with her dad. She either went to every Tennessee game with him, watched him, or listened to him. And I know so many, Uncle Charlie, so many people I know, Tennessee fans, friends of mine that listen to this show. I'm going to tell you what, Tennessee football, Fulmer had them on a gravy train with biscuit wheels and 4-wheel drive. Jake Crane, how did they screw it up? Lane Kiffin, I'm tired of this narrative. He's not a good coach. He's a hell of a coach. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast. You explain that one to me. As Ricky would say to Lucy on the old Lucille Ball show, explain to me, huh? Ricky said that. Sorry.
I think the Lane Kiffin thing, it was just a debacle from the start. I think Lane was pretty immature back then, to be honest with you. I think that kind of hurt him a little bit. I don't think he handled that situation very well. But I think there's a bigger problem with Tennessee, too. And I know you kind of look at recruiting rankings, and Pruitt's done some things there. You look at not being able to get a quarterback. I think recruiting's gone national. And I think it's hurt Tennessee and Nebraska. Because obviously, Tennessee's got some good football, but they don't have the football that Alabama and Georgia and Florida and all these states have. And you look around the SEC, it's hard for Tennessee to go in Alabama, like I said, or in these places and get these kids now like they used to when they were, riding high and doing big things. And I think it's cost them, and they really haven't been as much of a popping brand. And I know Mike Riley destroyed Nebraska, but they haven't been themselves in a while. And I think just with social media and the way the recruiting, like I said, has gone nationwide, because that's what Tennessee used to do. They used to go pick up guys from everywhere. It's what Nebraska did, outside of obviously some of the linemen in their home state, because Nebraska doesn't have super great football. I lived right across the road from Omaha. I recruited the whole state. So I think that's had a little bit to do with it. And I think obviously they've made bad decisions from a hiring standpoint. And, it's amazing. It's almost as if you make 2 bad hires in a row, it puts you in the tank for at least another hire. It just seems that way. It seems like if you don't get it right on your first 2 tries, it just goes downhill for 2 decades. So I think it's been a mix of that, and that's not the best way I can explain it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. let me say this real quick. Great points. And I look out there at Tennessee, and Gordon, you and I live in Memphis, and Jake, you're not that far, from Memphis, about 90 miles, living in Tupelo. The media in Memphis they don't give Tennessee much coverage, much attention at all. It's the University of Tennessee, probably 15 to 20,000 season ticket holders from right in the West Tennessee area around Memphis. I-40, you go east on a football weekend, traditionally, it's orange and white. Smokies Brigade. Inexcusable. But Tennessee's they don't have any leaders up there. That's the problem. Let's do this. I want to say something about one of our sponsors before we take a quick commercial break. Man, this is great stuff. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast with us. Gordon Ford, Mr. Ole Miss Rebel. Lonnie Lewis Smith, the pride of Macomb, Mississippi, up at the Bobcat right now with the brown bag and the brown water. Might disagree. And Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago. Three of the greatest minds of all time. The only thing comparable would be Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato. But I digress. I want to say something about one of our sponsors. Tom Dorian, a friend, father of five, member of Cursillo de Colores, brother Tom. CBHS alumnus, 1977 starter on the offensive line for Coach Tom Nix. Gotta love Coach Tom Nix and Coach Russell Reed and all of them. Coach Billy Canale. 1977 state champions in Tennessee. They beat Baylor. Also a member of the offensive line starter, 81, 2, and 3 for the University of Memphis. Played with Rex Dockery. Great coach. Lost him too young. 6240 Poplar Avenue, the Dorian Agency, 901-328-5858. Tom Dorian is my insurance agent. He's Audrey's insurance agent. Most people don't like talking about insurance, but you got to have it. Life insurance, property and casualty, homeowners. We met with Tom this summer. I've known him 43 years. We met with Tom 2 days later. Hey, we want what you were talking about. He's got a great team behind him. It's the team behind the team. If you've got insurance and you want him to review what you have, property and casualty, homeowners, life insurance, Tom will do that. If what you have works, he's not going to tell you to change it. If he can improve it, he'll tell you how. And if you're like most Americans, you might go years between making a claim on your insurance. They have a program that allows you to get up to 25% return of premium. You all know Tom, St. Louis Parish. He's there all the time. Tom is as solid as a rock. The Dorian Insurance Agency. He is my insurance agent. I recommend Tom Dorian. He will help you. Life insurance, property and casualty, and homeowners. 901-328-5858, the Dorian Agency. We'll be right back with more Sidelines till 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. east of the Chattahoochee, the Caney Fork, and the Johns River. Having a great time talking college football, basketball, and what's going up on Rocky Top. Smokey's up there just wondering what's going on. Oh! We'll be right back.
Entering the
Okay, Rob Brown back here with you. Another 30 minutes to go here on the Sunday edition Sidelines wrap-up show Sunday afternoon. Remember, our schedule is as follows. Every Friday, and we took off on Christmas Day, the holiest day of the year, the birth of Christ. We also took off New Year's Day. But we're on every Friday, except those days. Good Friday will be off as well. But every Friday, 3 to 5 p.m., www.sidelines.live podcast, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Saturday mornings, 8 to 10 a.m. on Sports 56 WHBQ, 96.1 FM and the new FM 98.5. Local radio signal about 150 miles around Memphis. Anywhere in the world, you can listen. www.sidelines.live. And, of course, the Sunday afternoon wrap-up show, 3 to 5 p.m. Central, always 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And great talk. We're talking about Tennessee. And, Jake, you talk about a couple of bad hires. And, Gordon and Jimmy, I'm going to start with you. I'll throw it back to you, Gordon. Tennessee basketball is thriving. But Tennessee basketball, women's basketball with Pat Summitt was so successful, 6 or 7 national championships. They separated Tennessee athletics into the Lady Vols and the men's athletics. I think that was harmful, and it has proven to be harmful long term. Gordon, give me your thoughts on that. And Tennessee, just some dumb hires again as ADs, and Phil Fulmer was pushed away. Now he's back, but I believe it absolutely. Too much looking over your shoulder, micromanagement's not good. But Gordon, take it from here.
No, I agree with you. And, they wanted him. They hated the guy that was there before him. So they went back to the past, and people kind of do that sometimes. And, it's just like an example. I'll give you a Tennessee deal here. I mean, when Johnny Majors basically was run off of Tennessee, Pitt brought him back to think he was going to bring him back to glory years. It didn't happen. And, I don't think Fulmer, the exception of basketball, but their baseball has not been that good. It's okay. They've had several losing seasons. I think they fired some coaches. I don't think women's basketball is as strong. And, I don't know, just because Fulmer was a football coach, how much of an AD he really is.
Yeah, and Jimmy, being an AD, and your background is being one of the 4 reps who rebranded Adidas all over the country. Being an athletic director, you're going to have controllers, accountants, and people all around you to crunch numbers. But you've also got to have that ability. And sometimes accountants and engineers are accused of being boring people. That's not true. They just get excited about boring things. Okay? You've got to be able to do both. Crunch the numbers, understand the flow, the money flow, where it's going to come from. But you've also got to be able to build relationships with people. You're in Knoxville right now visiting your mom. What's your feeling? And you're in Knoxville. You're over there in the shadows of Neyland Stadium. What the hell's going on up on Rocky Top? Because so many Tennessee fans ask me, and I think I got a pretty good idea. But golly, man, you had Eddie Munster Jr., Butch Jones there as a coach. You had Derek Dooley, who was about as unhappy and distanced from the fan base as I've ever seen. Why can't Tennessee get it together? Give him 6. What did he do? He scored. Jimmy Hodge, 87 yards on the run.
Well, I just don't know. I mean, the AD position is, it's critical. And, they had this run with, Mike Hamilton. He hit some rocky times. And then you've had, again, the Curry disaster just did not work at all. And I think there's just a lot of people that are kind of just dazed and confused, and you guys have pretty much described it. They've been keeping it very, very under wraps as to what's going on. But I mean, the general reality of the situation that isn't a secret is that Tennessee indeed is trying to find a way to get rid of Pruitt without having to pay that buyout.
What's the buyout? $13 million?
Yeah, it's somewhere in that neighborhood, and it certainly wouldn't be anywhere close to what it would be had they not signed him to that extension 2 days before the season opener.
Yeah.
And that's another point of contention because there was absolutely no reason to do that when they did it. So, but as far as the overall athletic program goes, I mean, you talk about baseball. They've never been the same since they fired Delmonico 20 years ago. They've tried a number of different people. It just made no sense that they did it back then, and it still doesn't. And again, they just haven't recovered from it. And even, one of their crown jewels, they're women's basketball. I mean, ever since, Pat suffered, her health problems that came into public view, and then she just, it eventually took her life. They have not been able to get it right there. And then, Kelly Jolly, the previous Power 5 job she had at NC State, she was fired from it. She went to Missouri State and, did well there. But at this level, I think a lot of people have a lot of questions with that. So, again, it's just not a good situation. And I know we've been talking about basketball for most of the hour and just a quick sweep of the conference. And again, Florida has just been a disappointment, to say the least, because 2 years ago it looked like Mike White had Florida on the cusp of approaching the success they had during the Billy Donaldson year. Yeah,
Player of the year is out.
Yeah,
That was hurting them.
Gordon, you know Mike White.
No, he's a great guy.
Yeah. Talk about him.
Mike's a very reserved guy, but look at what he did at Louisiana Tech. It's just like
great job there. Yeah,
34-1, and he's done a good job at Florida. But people don't point this out. At the end of Billy Donovan's tenure, I think he was 14-15 that last year. I think he just lost interest there. And I know Billy too, but he had it going on there. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened that last year, but they had a losing season. And Mike came in and kind of brought them back. And, I think that he's lost his best player. I think everything's in a funk in the league. Unfortunately, you might see some guys in the SEC get fired in basketball, which I kind of doubt. In football, they were just ready to get rid of Muschamp and Derek Mason. Those guys were so bad, they had to go. But I can't say anyone in the SEC so bad they need to be fired in basketball. Do you, Jimmy?
Well, I think Stackhouse would be a candidate.
He needs to be fired. I take that back. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And then, it hasn't been a secret that Frank Martin is not easy to play for, and he's kind of, his tenure is that Final Four appearance is kind of, he's losing
in the rear view.
Yeah, in the distance. Yeah, it is. And they've had a bunch of players leave, but he's a solid coach. And I tell you, a guy I thought that was kind of very unimpressive up to this year, and now they're playing well. Conzo Martin seems to have it turned around at Missouri, when it appeared that first 2 or 3 years, you had a lot of question marks there.
Yeah, he was unlucky with injuries, too. He was unlucky with injuries. Yeah, they got unlucky with injuries at Missouri, too. Porter Jr. was only able to play.
Oh, yeah. And then they tried to bring him back for the tournament, and he made a mistake there, kind of like Coach K did with Kyrie Irving. He got hurt at the very beginning of the year, and they developed some pretty good chemistry with the remaining players by the end of the season, and then they brought him back. And the 2 games Porter played, they lost in the first round of the SEC tournament.
Right.
And then in the And in the first round of the NCAA tournament, same thing happened with Kyrie Irving at Duke, So, there's just a lot of intangibles that you have to deal with at coaching at this level, even with the best coaches. Yeah.
All right, let me say this. I want to ask a question. Jake Crane, college football recruiting. We'll switch gears here. You look at right now, we got another signing date coming up the first Wednesday in February, as they say in the South, February or February. Look at the new coaches in the SEC. New coach at Vanderbilt. Okay. New coach at Auburn. New coach Shane Beamer at South Carolina, son of Frank Beamer, the great coach at Virginia Tech. And Beamer was formerly recruiting coordinator on the Steve Spurrier staff at South Carolina. Which of those three new hires is in position to make the biggest jump forward positive in recruiting? Talk about Coach Brian Harsin. You and I and Jimmy and all, we've talked about it. You got to have an alpha male, okay? If I'm going to a gunfight in the middle of the street in Dodge City, Kansas, Matthew, God dog, I'm going to tell you right now, Miss Kitty loves you. I want Gordon, you and Jimmy and I remember Gunsmoke. Jake, you might too.
Oh, yeah, Festus. Yeah.
Just kidding.
I didn't catch that one.
Hey,
Gordon, Festus was classic.
I love Festus. By the way, Ken Curtis, Festus was his real name was Ken Curtis, one heck of a singer. But talk about that, Jake Crane, and I want your thoughts on that, and then we'll shift back around. God, I love this stuff. Gordon Ford, Mr. Ole Miss Rebel. Again, Lonnie Lewis Smith, the pride of Macomb, Mississippi, might debate that. And Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast. If you're listening, it is Sunday, January 17th, 2021. My dad always says, boy, you better make sure you put the day and the date on the show because sometimes I'm not sure what I'm listening to. I'm like, well, Grand Bob, maybe you shouldn't have so many scotch and waters. But anyway, go ahead, Jake.
Well, I guess I gotta take your word for it. Festus was a good singer. That was the last one I heard. Talking about the new coaching hires, who's going to make the biggest jump recruiting wise was the question. Just want to make sure I'm right.
Jake, yep. Yeah. Tell me what you think of these new hires.
Okay.
Yeah, recruiting wise.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was right. Because Festus is probably a good singer. I don't want to doubt you guys. I want to make sure I was
He is.
I didn't know that either.
Well, if we're talking about the biggest jump, if I had to put my money on anybody, it'd be Vandy because they lost every game. So they win one game. That's what next year. But from a recruiting standpoint, Brian Harsin, I think, is a guy, at least from what, at this point, Shane Beamer, he's a young guy. I think he's kind of a bigger question mark, obviously as a coach in general as well as in the SEC. But look at already what Brian Harsin's doing. They're about to get Gunnar Stockton, 5-star number one quarterback in class of 2022 by some ranking systems. There's a bunch out there. And they've already offered a bunch of offensive linemen, high school offensive tackles, which, Malzahn and that regime have kind of abandoned that over the past couple of years. He's having to balance out the roster, so that takes some time. But just from a structure and stability standpoint, from a staff that he's brought in, I think it's a nice blend of proven guys and young and hungry guys, which makes your staff more versatile. You don't want a bunch of proven people and experienced older guys on one staff. That tends to never really work. You want to sprinkle in some young, energetic guys because somebody's got to go get the coffee and print the paper out. But at the end of the day, I do see Auburn again because they're obviously more of a brand right now as well than Vanderbilt or South Carolina. And to be honest with you, if this guy's able to recruit at Vanderbilt consistently, and I'm not talking just the way James Franklin did it with transfers and JUCO guys that somehow qualify, but if he's able to do it with high school guys, he may need to run for office.
Hey, got it. Hey, Jake, I'm going to ask this question, and you can answer it, and I'm going to let Jimmy and Gordon answer. Look at Nebraska. Scott Frost played at Nebraska. Great lineage, great pedigree, Nebraska. Since 1963, Jimmy, am I correct? They've sold out every football game in Lincoln without fail?
Yep.
Okay, now, question.
It might even be 61, but it's one of those 2 years. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Going on 60 years.
Okay, got a text from Sam down in Carrollton, Georgia. Hope everybody's at the Big Chick. And Andy Williford up there in Pennsylvania with Volvo. Rob Shoney Anderson down in Valdosta. They said, what about those old county scholarships they gave? Every county gave 2 scholarships to Nebraska back in the day. And Nebraska had a great football program. We're still 3rd or 4th winningest of all time. Question is, and I want y'all to answer it. Can Nebraska football get back, or are they in the same mess that Tennessee is? Whoever wants to answer this one, take the first one.
All right, I'll take it first. It was a big rebuilding when Coach Frost got there. I don't think Nebraska is going to get back to where they were. I don't think the brand's as sexy as it was back then. I just think it's a different era. I think Scott will get them. They may win 9-10 games one year, but I think they'll be consistently 8 wins. I just think kind of the same thing I talked about Tennessee. They have to recruit nationally, and everybody's able to do that now. And just by mathematics, your ability to get more guys from around you decrease, obviously. So I don't think Nebraska will be back where they were. I think Coach Frost is a really good coach. I think he's going to maximize what they can have. But I think the days of, and again, the days of lining up in the eye and doing the stuff that they did is, it's kind of over. You have to have a passing game and stuff like that. So again, I just highly doubt they can get back to that point, in my opinion.
All right, Jimmy.
I think they're
what do you think?
Yeah, I think their ill-fated decision to leave the Big 12 to go to the Big 10, it was a good financial decision, but it absolutely killed their recruiting ability in Texas. And it just hasn't been a good fit for them in the Big 10, and they just seem to be right now in a black hole. They just seem to be stuck in it, combined with a couple of some coaching hires that were terrible, from Callahan to they really should have never let Solich go, in my mind. And
that's the best point ever.
I mean, he has done. Well, he was there. He was a high school coach in Lincoln. He was Osborne's handpicked successor. Yeah, he played there. He's an undersized fullback in the early 60s. And they were a fumble at the 1-yard line against Texas from going undefeated 99, and would have been playing Florida State for the national championship. And again, since they let him go because they brought in Steve Peterson, a horrible AD, and then Solich has gone on to do a fantastic job at Ohio U over the last 2 decades.
Always wins.
Yeah.
Yes. And so they hired Callahan, Bill Callahan. He's a great offensive line coach, but he was a horrendous head coach. Then they had Pelini, who was just a curmudgeon, just didn't fit in there. And then Mike Riley.
No, man, he won like 9 games or 10 games a year.
But it wasn't against good teams. They could not beat the elite teams. And plus, the fan base hated him. He's talking about a fan base that had sold out every home game since the early 60s.
They did hate him now. I give you that.
Yeah, he was just trashing their fan base, who's as loyal as any fan base in the country. But again, he just didn't win big games. And then when they did get to the championship game, Ohio State laid a 60 spot on them, and you'd have stuff like that happen, and it was just
Wisconsin beat them really bad that time.
Oh yeah, they all also laid 60 on them. So that was Nebraska doesn't lose to Wisconsin like that, and so that just added to the frustration, and then Mike Riley was the coup d'etat. I mean, that they are literally, that's a 4 or 5 year recovery right there, and Frost is 3 years in. And when you look at what he did at Central Florida, turning them around from 0-12 and 0-2 years, it's obvious the guy's a really good coach, but he's in a really tough situation in Lincoln.
Hey, Jake Crane, want to throw this one at you. And look, 9 years of coaching. You grew up, like you said, with your dad, Kurt Crane, all-American linebacker at Auburn, 86 and 87. Man, tell me this. In recruiting, Nebraska, they used to go heavily into Southern California. They got a lot of really good players from around the country, but most of their linemen were homegrown. The the scholarships, 2 per county, that's gone. Warren Buffett is going to, when he kicks the bucket, is going to leave him a S pile of money. But you can have all the money in the world. I reference to members of the jury here, Texas and Texas A&M. But you got to have a leader. You got to have that one voice. And I think Jimbo Fisher's starting to step up. A&M wasn't great this year, but they went 10-1. Only the second time in this millennium that the Aggies, Gig 'em Aggies, have won 10 or more games in a season, twice in the last 21 years. Your thoughts on that, Jake? Again, coaching is important, but you got to have players, man. You can't make Kobe beef fillets or Wagyu beef fillets without Wagyu beef. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, it's recruiting, and if there's one thing I feel like I say every time I come on here is that the game's won and lost up front, because it is. And you look at the teams that dominate, not only back then, but even today, they typically have the best offensive line and a really good D-line, or the best D-line and a pretty good offensive line. There's not a lot of teams that win championships that have bad play up front, where there's none. And I think that's hurt Nebraska. But, again, you can, like you said, have all the money and all this, but I think it really takes a person that has a plan, that has control. I think that's a huge deal, and I don't think enough people talk about that. Jimbo at A&M has full control. There's only certain places that actually give you full control. I believe Auburn gave Brian Harsin not full control, but more control and leeway than they've given any other head coach when it comes to the stuff behind the scenes. So, again, the money and boosters and all that's great, but if you don't have a plan, you don't have a guy that understands the importance of structure, you don't have a guy that understands the importance of recruiting and development, then all the money, unless you create robot players and nobody knows, isn't going to help.
Yeah. Look, about out of time. Jimmy Hodge, I want you to do this, then Gordon, then Jake. Give me your full 60 seconds. Your most passionate thoughts right now about what's going on in the college sports world, SEC, American Athletic Conference, and all. And we'll go Jimmy, Gordon, and Jake. We're going to close out with some music by Ken Curtis. Festus, Matthew, Dadgone, get in there. Miss Kitty loves you. But Jimmy, go ahead.
Well, I won't do any singing. But anyway, and that's a good thing, believe me. But, as we just concluded what is the most bizarre, unique season in college football that we will ever experience, I think the big question, and really the most important aspect of getting ready for the 2021 season, is the hope that everybody's going to be able to have a spring practice. It's absolutely critical, because we all know that a good portion of these highly rated recruits will enroll early for that specific purpose. And if for the second consecutive season that a new recruiting class, that players in that recruiting class that want to come in to learn the system early and just experience what it's like to compete against elite players every day in a scrimmage situation in the spring. It's absolutely critical. So I hope those players, as well as the returning players, get that opportunity. It's just absolutely critical. As far as college basketball goes, again, I just hope there's a way that in the off season that they finally can work something out with the NBA Players Union to get rid of that one and done, because it's absolutely destroyed college basketball. and I think the quality of play, and allow these guys, if they want to, coming out of high school, think they're good enough to take the plunge, either get in the NBA draft or play professionally in Australia or the D League. And now I think after the pandemic, the NBA will also finally be opening a D League in Africa, which will provide more opportunities for younger players that don't want to go to college. I just hope they can fix that and just have the guys that want to play college basketball pick a school, and once they attend that first day of classes, just like in baseball, you might not be able to get the Players Association to agree to stay for 3 years, but maybe 2 years. Even if they did that in basketball, it would just help the sport tremendously. I think it would improve the quality of play, and the fact that at least these younger players would be able to integrate into a program for 2 years. At least the head coaches know how long they're going to have them, and then they can develop a chemistry with the older players. Hopefully that's going to happen to help stabilize the quality of play in college basketball.
Great points, Jimmy. Gordon, for your closing arguments to the judge, the jury, and all the listeners on www.sidelines.live, the Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. Gordo, Mr. Rebel, let her rip.
I'll be short and sweet, Rob. The key is, we mentioned in basketball how you could have 2 or 3 players turn your program around. Okay? And one team that's done that, LSU with Will Wade, and I think we all know how he did it. You have him and Sean Miller, who are on a national HBO show offering players money and talking about it, and they haven't been fired. And the NCAA hasn't come in on them. That's my pet peeve there. Why are they still coaching? And I'm going to leave it at that.
Jake Crane, closing comments, arguments, close to the jury before we they go into deliberation, before we get off the air. Jake Crane, go ahead, host of the J-Boy podcast.
Yeah, well, first off, I didn't do it.
You're innocent.
Second off, I just hope, and I'm an optimist, and going under the assumption that we'll be back to normal next year and be able to get a lot of people in the stands. And I hope, regardless of whether it's baseball, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, the next year, after all the stuff that we've been through, when you're at the game, or even if you're watching the game on TV and you see the packed house, you just take a second to realize how important that is, and to really cherish that, and how much of a part of our DNA that is for so many people here, and what it means to not only us as fans and former coaches and players, but what it means to communities economically, what it means to relationships between people. There's been a lot of marriages that have been found at sporting events, and just being able to be surrounded by a bunch of people that are excited about the same stuff you are, that you grew up, whether it's with your mom, whether it's with your dad, your granddad, grandmother, doesn't matter, that you went to. You talk about, Audrey's relationship with her dad and going to those games. That stuff, that's who we are. That makes us, what we are. And I just hope maybe next year, just for 1 second, where it's before the game, and like I said, it doesn't matter the sport, if we're all able to get in there and just take a second and realize how lucky we are and how fortunate we are, and cheer your heart out. That's what I would say.
Absolutely, man. Let me say thank you so much to Jimmy Hodge. Thank you so much for taking time to be on Sidelines with us. Gordon Ford, ditto. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast, ditto. Mitch Davis, host of the MitchDavisShow.com, ditto. Johnny Radio, everyone, our sponsors, our listeners, thank you so much. We're going to close out with a ballad by Ken Curtis, Festus. I know he's up there in heaven arguing with Doc and Matt Dillon, and Miss Kitty, and Chester, who had that god-awful limp. Gordon, you and Jimmy remember that. He became McLeod, Dennis Weaver. Here's a little Ken Curtis to put you to bed tonight. For everybody listening on Sidelines.live, thank you so much. Have a great week. Look, find excuses to win. Go out and help other people with no expectation of anything in return, and let Festus say goodbye. We're out of here, folks. Listen to Festus. Good night. Have a great night, everybody.
to the ground. Lonely but free I'll be found, drifting along with a tumbling tumbleweed. Cares of the past are behind,